Hi, Autumn. Congratulations on your Oscar nomination for Sinners.
Thank you so much.
Your nomination set several milestones and records. Let's go one by one about this milestones that you set. You are the first Filipino to earn the Academy's Best Cinematography nomination for Sinners. Please share your thoughts on that one. Let's go it one by one.
Yeah, I'm very proud of the film. I think it's mostly because, I made it with people that I consider family, who I worked with before on Wakanda Forever. And it's a very personal story for Ryan, but also for myself because my father's side of the family is he was born and raised in New Orleans, so I still have family there. And so to be able to tell that type of story and go back to the South, and have some of my family visit, it was very touching just being there every day, making the film with, everybody that has that connection to the South. Like all of our heads of departments are people of color that have a connection to the South. And so, yeah, I think, it's not just the nomination, but it's what it's actually for that matters to me. It's because it's that film. So.
Speaking of people of color, you're also the first woman of color to earn the Oscar's Best Cinematography nomination for Sinners.
Mm.
Please also talk about this distinction.
Yeah, I think I got into this career path. I've been doing it for a while, but there weren't a lot of women um, that I could find, early on. When I was kind of looking into the career, and then also when I started to do it in film school, there were 11 girls in my class out of 28. So I always knew women were interested in it. But the more and more I've done it, the opportunities are few and far between. And so I've been very fortunate as, a woman working on larger projects with Ryan. And, when I was able to do Loki, that was a big deal. And so it was really nice. But yeah, I do find that like now it's more prevalent. Like I have a lot of young girls, you know, whether they're Filipino or Black, like reaching out to me saying, how important it is to be able to see me in order to like believe that they can one day do that job. So I think that aspect of it is really, it matters to me, to go out and talk and do these Q&As and make sure that I tell these girls that like they have a place and that their point of view matters. So it's very special.
That's great. Additionally, you are the first woman to shoot a feature film entirely on a 15 perf IMAX 65 camera, which greatly enhanced Sinners. Can you talk about why you and director Ryan Coogler decided on that camera format and why it suits your and Ryan's vision for the film?
Yeah, I think, he originally wanted to shoot on 16 mil, because he had shot Fruitvale Station on that and loved that format. And then, in our prep process, we kind of found our way, to shooting large format. Um, and it was rooted, in kind of just really trying to like put these faces in the story on the, biggest kind of most glamorous kind of, presentation because we hadn't really given that much beauty and weight to like what these characters did in the 30s, as far as blues music and just the Jim Crow South, what that looked like, and the beauty within that story, I think was important. Ryan like really envisioned it like, on this format and being the best format to tell it once we open the large format door. The story's better for it, and also the two formats have never been used together. So that's a really brave choice that I think worked out beautifully and was able to tell the story in this unique way and get people to the theater to see it in various different, projections and like really embrace it. So yeah, I think, being the first was a side note because I think Vanessa Bendetti from Kodak called me and was like, "Oh, you're the first to do this," and I was on my way to set, so it didn't really cross my mind at the time how big of a deal it was, um, but it is, and I'm honored that I was able to tell that story on that format.
We are so proud of you. You are an inspiration for people of color, including Filipinos and Filipinas who want to break into Hollywood, to the Hollywood film industry. Can you talk about how your Filipino and Black Creole heritage helped inspire you to become an artist? I understand that as a kid, you watched Woody Allen films with your Filipino mother. And so please also talk about that. And if you can, please give us your mother's full name.
Yes. My mom's, well, her maiden name is Peggy Batista. My grandfather her father grew up in Masanto, Papanga. And so she was actually born in England. Because my grandfather joined the service, you know, after, I mean, in World War II. And so he moved his family to the UK and then they traveled and made it to America. But she has six brothers. And so I have a lot of cousins, like many Filipino Roman Catholic families. I have a lot of cousins and spent a lot of time with them growing up and was always, my mom, would like film or watching movies or going to museums or doing art with my grandmother, like crafting. And my grandmother always took a lot of pictures because she traveled a lot. This was always a part of kind of my upbringing. And so, and my mom raised me. And so, yeah, when I was little, I think I watched a lot of films that were probably, you know, older for me, like if I'm watching, Hannah and her sisters, but I was, 12 or something like that. I wasn't always understanding what was going on, but it was always intriguing and kind of these character studies. So it wasn't until later I got into film when I was older, but it was always a big part of my upbringing. And um, yeah, I didn't have anybody in film in my family, so I kind of had to figure out how to get into it myself by going to film school and you know, um, you don't see yourself reflected, your culture reflected in the film business very often, but it was really amazing to see Maddie Libatique. Maddie's work was always like some of my favorite films, but then, he came to our school one day at AFI because I went to AFI. He also went there. And so I remember seeing him and just feeling a sense of, um, like just proud to see someone that looked like me, part of my culture up there doing great work. And then him, it was just one person, right? But his work and him standing there and he was so cool. I felt like I can do this, it's important. It's important to see your culture reflected in the business in order to kind of give you the bravery to be able to do work and to put yourself into it. And so in meeting Ryan, it's also being able to find that community that you feel safe in and that you're trusted. So it's really nice to be able to work with people that look like me on these movies.
Following up on that, you were born in Oxnard, California, but grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area. How Filipino was your upbringing?
Yeah, I mean, my mom, like my auntie, I call her Mama Lynn. My mom was a working woman. She remarried when I was in eighth grade, so my stepdad is a big part of my life, and they've always been supportive of this career choice, which, meant a lot of student loans and not always knowing what a cinematographer did, but they trusted that it was something important to me. But yeah, my upbringing, it was very much with my mom's side, who's Filipino. And we grew up in the Bay Area, so my auntie and my cousins lived in Fremont, which is a very big Filipino community in Fremont. And so my mom would leave me there a lot, when she was working. So they were a part of, my upbringing as far as watching me. So I always had family watching me. I wasn't, raised with babysitters and stuff like that. Like my mom would drop me off at my family house and, I'd hang out with my cousins and go to school, like go to their school events. And my older cousins were cheerleaders, so we'd go to football games and they were like my sisters. So yeah, my mom has six brothers, so there's a lot of grandkids and a lot of cousins. And so yeah, I was very much a part of like, we always had Thanksgiving or any chance to celebrate, Filipinos will have a party and they'll cook a lot of food. So that's kind of how my upbringing was, being raised by my aunties and uncles.
Yeah. And can you talk about filming your fellow Filipino American Haley Steinfeld in
Yeah.
Sinners?
Yes.
By the way, Haley is the first Filipino American to earn an Oscar acting nomination for True Grit in 2010.
Yes, no, Haley's beautiful, like a beautiful person. No, it was an honor to be able to photograph her, and I say that because and recently I actually I got to see her again because I shot a commercial with her for the Super Bowl, so it was really nice to be able to see her again. And I think for me, it's like she has such a very unique look. Her beauty is so strong and kind of it's very old Hollywood glamour. That's how I feel about her face. Like there's so much power in the structure of her face, and you can't really place her beauty, Like I can tell that she's mixed, but yeah, I loved photographing her. I loved lighting her. She has a very, amazing presence in the space. And so yeah, and then when I found out, I think Ryan told me first, and then we talked about it when we were on set, like our background, which is really lovely because it's just nice when you meet other women that have similar background. But yeah, I was like, I'm honored to call her a friend now. She's a really wonderful person.
What are you looking forward to about attending the Oscars as a nominee?
Yeah, I mean, it's a dream come true. I think, again, for this film is super important. I think, globally, culturally, to our team, personally, to me, to my family. So I'm honored to be there with this film and with my kind of, my team, because only hope that everyone can kind of get celebrated, but the fact that we got the all the 16 nominations is, unheard of. So it's been nice to, no one's been left out, everyone is able to celebrate and it's just nice. I mean, you have to kind of be present, right? Because there's so much to absorb, and it just doesn't happen often. So, my son, I'm going to bring my son. My son is 10 years old, so I'm going to bring him,
Uh-huh.
hopefully with me, so he can see that because I think that's important.
For my last question, what's your advice to aspiring cinematographers, especially women of color, especially Filipinas?
Yeah, I mean, I always say just be yourself. I think there's a lot of when you're younger, especially, you know, being Filipino and Black and also not growing up in communities where, people knew what your background was, like because everyone's always trying to be like, what are you, and kind of place you in a box, um, which is unfortunate, right? Because these days, I think, there's so many different mixed race couples, and, it's so beautiful to be able to kind of mesh different cultures together and learn about people. And um, it really does make a difference. And so I try to say, just pour as much of yourself into anything that you do, even if you don't feel, like you're being reflected in the community that you're in, because that's when people feel scared, right? If they're the one single person and everyone around them doesn't look like them, it could be difficult to kind of, be free creatively. So I try to tell them like, don't be scared to put yourself out there, like where you came from, if your point of view matters, you do matter. So that's my advice.